Welcome to the Sacred Window podcast. I'm your host, Christine Devlin Eck. Here at the Center for Sacred Window Studies, we explore and expand on conscious postpartum care. We navigate the overlap of caring for others and caring for ourselves. We honor the transitions, not only in giving birth, but in being alive. Welcome to the conversation.
And I will never be the same again.
Welcome. I'm Christine Eck. I'm the founder of the Center for Sacred Window Studies. I'm so pleased to be joined by my co-founders, Julia Fishman, Charlotte Sensini Sternkind, and Ashley Sakashi Wilkin are all here. This is a very, very special day for me that I get to welcome one of my teachers, Claudia Welch. Claudia is joining us from Vermont today. Claudia is a lifelong student of life and of medicine. She's practiced Ayurveda. She's licensed as a doctor of Oriental medicine. She's authored one of my favorite books, Balance Your Hormones, Balance Your Life, Achieving Optimal Health and Wellness Through Ayurveda, Chinese Medicine, and Western Science. Claudia's way of teaching is one that just stuck with me in so many beautiful ways. Your transparency, your stories, your humor, it really translates this incredible science into a recognition of self. And so for that, I am so forever grateful, and I welcome you wholeheartedly to this community. Thank you for being here. So today we're going to be talking about hormonal health, women's health, and Claudia is graciously inviting us to have this be a conversational gathering, one in which we get to learn from her, but we can ask questions as well. So Claudia, I'm going to just allow you to say hello and welcome and get us started. And thank you for being here.
Thank you, Christine, and thank you everybody for being here and taking your time, and for and to the founders of this beautiful space for holding it and for doing this beautiful work. I always like to just start with a few quiet minutes to arrive, to soften the matrix in which impressions are made in our beings, to feel connected, to bring the focus in from outside and from all the places that attention gets connected and attached. Kind of carefully detach the little silken cloth of our attention, detach it from those thorns of attachment, whether it's a being attached to something about the news, or something about our children, or some children, or partners, or work worries, or things that we're attached to in beautiful ways or uncomfortable ways. All of those, let's just see if we can detach that silken cloth from that thorny bush and bring that attention inward and soften our energy, our beings, the knots, the tight places, the stinging places, soften that all, come to rest in our innermost essence for just a few minutes before we begin this exploration together. I think we can feel when we do these things our connectedness with each other and with ourselves, and how our feeling of our own inner self is not necessarily that different from feeling connected to the spirit of each other, that we are in each other, that we are all in this very connected collective consciousness. And this our relationship to this, because we're not always totally connected to our innermost essence in a very conscious way like that, our relationship to it is so malleable. Everything is so malleable. Even the earth is malleable. I went to this um, way over my head geology lecture a couple nights ago about the local geology in where I am, but it was so over my head that I didn't get a lot of it. But my favorite part of the night was somebody asked, we were talking about tectonic plates of the earth, and somebody asked after the presentation, what what is there are there any places in the earth on the earth where there's not movement of the tectonic plates, that it's quiet, that it's not in motion? And the presenter said no, the tectonic plates are moving all the time. The mountains are being formed and plates are moving under one another, squishing into each other. All of this is happening all the time. So there's all this motion happening around, and yet we have sometimes these very fixed patterns that create difficulty, um, and an inability to adjust to the tectonic shifts in our own bodies after birth, going into death. At any moment, there's birth and death going on all the time, or tectonic shifts in politics or whatever. There's always these shifts. And how do we cooperate with those shifts as for the highest good? We get stuck and we don't want to adjust, and it causes pain. This stagnation causes pain 100% of the time. If there's pain, there's stagnation of something. And there's very few things you can say that with that level of assurity in medicine or in life in general. But if there's pain, emotional or physical, 100% of the time, there's some kind of stagnation. So how do we shift and let things move for the highest good? And one of the ways I like to think about that is, when we're born, this part of our brain called the nucleus bacillus is on. And what that does, that part of the brain allows new neural pathways to be formed. And it's on for everything, anything you do in front of, around a child, new neural pathways are being born all the time. And it's just huge. Like, you don't have to do a song and dance in front of a baby. Anything we do is going to make an impression on that child. And then around puberty, because this is such an energy expensive process, any of these neural pathways that aren't being used get pruned off, and the ones that are being used get fixed. And so then we think, okay, well, what if those patterns weren't very good? How do we change those patterns? Um, how do we how do we soften what we've been fit into that doesn't work? How do we allow for change at that point? And there is a way to do this. And the first step to me seems to be um, a feeling of connection and safety. When we have that feeling of connection and safety, oxytocin rises. And the oxytocin makes that matrix in which impressions are made in us, in our brains, in our energetic bodies. Oxytocin softens that matrix so that an impression can be made. And then when we focus strongly, that in itself turns on the nucleus bacillus so that we're able to now make an impression. So, how we, so when we are going into satsang, one of the ways we can be receptive to good change is to feel that connection. And then we focus, then we get to focus. And what do we focus on in order to adjust well to the constant tectonic shifts that are going on, whether it's postpartum or post-election or post-apocalyptic or post or post divinity, post a divine experience. You know, how do we allow ourselves to shift? These are, we can in part kind of, for me, it helps to get out of the way and let these things happen. Trust in that overarching divinity that knows how to shift me for the highest good, right? So, yeah, after birth, there's this tremendous tectonic shift. The death of the mother that used to not be a mother, or her life was different, the birth of this new baby, there's this period of time that is so, so powerful where that matrix is softened because there's tremendous oxytocin as the mother is connecting to the baby. So there's a tremendous vulnerability and openness and receptivity to change during this period of time postpartum for the mother and for the baby. Unbelievable tectonic shifts are going on. I haven't given birth. I don't have children. I've given birth to projects. So any of us in this group who have given birth to books or projects or something, everybody has given birth to something. And after that project is completed, there's this period of time that in India is called Sutika. There's Sutika is this 2 week period of time, but I think it spreads into about a year, depending on how close you are to the person or the experience. There's a This period is called Sutika. Sutika is an interesting word. Sutika means both it means mercury, which is both a liquid and a solid, so something that has the capacity to be in two different states. It also means charioteer. A chariot moves from the earth to the heavens or the heavens to the earth. So something that is between two worlds. It's this liminal space that we inhabit when there is a birth and when there is a death. And during this period of time, it's that matrix in which impressions are made. What I find is that period of time is softened. It is receptive to new patterns, good or bad. And that's why this period of time sort of ideally needs to be protected so that the new patterns that are being formed are not obstructed by rajas and tamas. They're not obstructed by an overactive mind and nervous system, and not obstructed by tamas, by too much inertia or depression. So having this postpartum period of time, allowing that oxytocin to be present, to keep that softening, and to be a co-participant in the tectonic shifts that are happening at that time. Having that time being protected is maybe one of the most powerful medicines we can give each other. So that's a little opening. And Christine, you know this community obviously way better than I do, and where what you would like to hear. We can, I can keep talking about all different kinds of things, but in since we're talking about this postpartum period, that kind of sets the stage for things. But if you or anybody else have something that you would really like to explore, I can work that into the other thoughts that are kind of coming to mind about this period of time.
It was such a beautiful opener. And I think for me, it really resonates with the understanding that all of life, all of the windows of life, all of these unique periods of time, whether it's the baby sort of taking in these first impressions, whether it's someone having a baby and going through that brand new transition. They're all kind of woven and connected with a larger flow of energy that we are not at its mercy, I guess. Like, we have the opportunity to tap into that flow in a very intentional, loving way, which softens all of the ways that I remember something that sticks out to me that you had said in a class that I took from you after your book came out, Claudia. And it was like, you said, I really wanted to call it balance your life, balance your hormones, but they wouldn't let me, they wouldn't let me call it that. And so I guess that to me indicates that it's really about finding that inner source and kind of working with the balance of all those tectonic plates that are constantly in motion, that is life itself, and becoming friends with that rather than feeling like it's moving and somehow we have to like keep our balance or we're going to fall down and everything's going to be terrible. It's like, how can we become friends with that movement, and develop a trust, develop a sense of trust and certainty that we're going to be
Guys,
okay
where
with
are you?
It's a beautiful question. It's a really beautiful question. And so to talk about that balance your hormones, balance your life thing, I had a wonderful editor. She was just, I really love her, extremely effective. And she let me write the whole book. And when she was editing, she'd never changed my words. She would just maybe say, "Oh, could you clarify here?" and so forth. So I wrote the whole book, but I couldn't figure out a title. And so she got in touch with me and she said, I have the perfect title for the book, Balance Your Hormones, Balance Your Life. And I said, well, Renee, that's great, but it's backwards because the whole book, the whole point of the book is not that if you balance your hormones, your life will then balance. It's if you balance your life, then your hormones will balance. So it's backwards. It should be called Balance Your Life, Balance Your Hormones. And she said, yeah, but that won't sell as many copies. So we're going to go with this, with my way. So that's fine. I wrote the book, she wrote the title. That was perfect, and that was her job. So it was perfect. But this question of how do we build this trust of creating, I forget how you put it, Christine, but how do we build this trust? How do we interact with the changes that are going on? I'll share with you a way that comes to mind that I look at this. And um, I don't know how um, how many of you have this background in Ayurveda to understand this concept, but it's a very simple concept, so I'll share it briefly. There's the three laws of tissue nutrition, of dhatu is tissue in Ayurveda. And these three laws are irrigation, which is Kedari Kulya Nyaya, um, selectivity, which is Kale Kapota Nyaya, and transformation, which is Kshira Dhadi Nyaya. And what this law is talking about is so beautiful. Like there's all the tissues in the body, the plasma, the chyle, the blood, the muscle tissue, fat tissue, bone tissue, reproductive tissue, all these different tissues in the body, and they all have to have nourishment. And these three laws apply to how those tissues get nourished. So let me explain that a little bit and then apply it to what we're talking about. So the first law, selectivity, right? What do you need? What do these tissues need? Irrigation. What do these tissues need to be nourished? They need to be they need to have access to nourishment. They need some kind of irrigation moving through the whole body that they can pull out what of that circulating rasa and rakta dhatu, that circulating nutrition, that the tissues can each pull out from there what they need, right? And that pulling out what that irrigation can happen from dhatu to dhatu. Rasa can nourish rakta, rakta can rasa, rakta, mamsa, rakta can nourish mamsa, etc. For those of you who have that background. But also, it doesn't have to go from tissue to tissue. It can go from the generally circulating nutrition to each tissue specifically. So from the rasa and rakta doesn't have to go rasa, rakta, mamsa, meda, asti, majja, and then all the way through that to shukra. Shukra dhatu, the most or artava dhatu, the most concentrated and refined tissue of the body, can also pull what it needs, not only from the previous tissue in the line. If you're not following this and you don't know that level of Ayurveda, don't worry. Well, I'll say it another way in a minute. All these different tissues nourish each other down to this most concentrated tissue. But it doesn't also have to go through each level of those tissues. That most concentrated level of tissue can also pull what it needs out of the circulating rasa and rakta dhatu, out of the circulating nutrition in the whole organism, and pull what it needs. So that's irrigation. That's that first law. Kedari kulya nyaya. Kedari means a little field, and kulya is creek. So a creek running through a field. So there's a creek running through a field. There's these nourishing uh, tissues, blood and chyle, plasma. Rasa is terrible translation of rasa, but for our purposes, there it is. There's this nourishing soup, right? This nourishing creek running all through the body, and the tissues get to pull out what they need. This brings us to the law of selectivity, kapoti nyaya, where kapota is, kale is like a little field where you've put seeds, right? A grain threshing ground. There's these little bits of grain and seeds and on the ground. That's kale. Kapota is a dove or a pigeon. So the pigeon goes into this field, this threshing ground, and chooses which grains and seeds it wants, right? Kale kapotanya, the law of selectivity. The pigeon selects what it needs from this field. So each of the tissues that are that need to be nourished, they're the pigeons. They're the pigeons. They get to select out of the circulating nutrition what they need. I'm going to come back to that in a minute because I think that's where we're going to focus here. But then the third law is transformation, kshira dadinyaya, where milk becomes yogurt. Kshira, milk becomes dadi, yogurt. And so once we've selected what we need, once me as this little pigeon has selected the seed that I know that I need, then the job is for it to become transformed into something biologically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually useful and refined in my organism and in my experience. Does that make sense, everybody? Right? So irrigation, selectivity, transformation. Something is irrigating, I pull it out, I I I select what I need from that, and then that transforms into tissue in terms of a baby into the maturing tissues and organs and systems, right? That's transformational process. That tectonic shift is going on constantly with that baby. So that baby is needing to have the irrigating nutrition from the mother's milk, ideally. And if that's not possible, from some good quality formula or something, because it's not always possible to get it from the mother's milk. But what it also needs to be irrigated with love. Oh, God willing, that's possible. So touch and love, whether if it's not possible from the parents, then from the foster parents, the adopted parents, the community, it needs to be held and nourished. It needs physical irrigation of what it needs, and it needs emotional, spiritual, mental irrigation of what it needs, right? So ideally that irrigation is there, and the mother needs her nutrition at that time. That nutrition coming from a good quality diet, coming from um, community, coming from safety, so not just vitamins and minerals we're talking here. We're talking about the whole experience that's surrounding her, that's irrigating her, so that both the mother and the baby have these irrigating um, experiences, factors, and physical nutrition and emotional nutrition, mental nutrition. That's all around. Both the mother and the baby then have this selectivity process, right? This is where, when Christine asks, how do we trust interaction with the environment? This is a point like, what are we selecting? Is this a conscious process? Is this an unconscious process? I'm going to go back to that in a minute. But and then once that has been absorbed into once we've selected that, then we need the Agni, the digestive power, that mental Agni, the spiritual Agni, the physical Agni, to be able to transform what we have selected into biologically, materially, mentally, emotionally uh, uh, refined experience for us. So does that make sense? Any questions about those three laws before we move into talking about selectivity and finally come around to addressing Christine's question here? Any question about those three laws? Makes sense, right? Let me just give a thumbs up. I want to know we're all on the same page. Okay, good. All right, so we've got all that going. So let's look at, irrigation. We have some control over what's irrigating uh, us and our babies, right? Whatever, and again, I haven't given birth, but this is what's happening. There's nutrition, and there's the surrounding environment. We have whatever control we have over that, and we don't have control over all of that. But let's look at the law of selectivity. Whatever is irrigating, like if we look at that process in the body, all these nutrients and qualities, gunas, and tastes are irrigating the body, and the various tissues don't accept all of what's being irrigated. It just selects some. It just selects what is needed. I mean, just how mind-blowing is that, that the tissues know what they need from the circulating circus of possibility. It knows what it needs. That kind of intelligence is not an intellectual intelligence. It's not a decision. It's not a even choice, I would say. It's a knowledge. It's an inner innate knowledge in line with all the laws of divine organization of the universe. That's what's coming to bear on how an organ, it's going to bring tears to my eyes. What an incredible, what an incredible intelligence at play that's happening for that tissue to know what to pull out of the circulating, irrigating constellation of qualities and tastes and experiences. It's mind-blowing, isn't it? So that's on the unconscious level. On the conscious level, what are we choosing to give ourselves at that moment? What is our conscious role in this as as we are being exposed to, again, this circus of qualities. How do we select? We give a lot of attention in Ayurveda to Agni, making Agni better for the transformation process, right? For that Kshira Dhadinyaya. Like, how's your Agni? Is this Agni good? Is the Dhatu Agnis good? Are these Agnis good? Is the Jata Agni healthy? That's very important for that transformation. But we don't give as much attention to the law of selectivity, to the Kale Kapota Nyaya. What are we selecting? And how are we making that selection for ourselves and maybe in a more tricky way for our baby? But we're so connected to the baby in the postpartum time that what what I'm feeling as the mother is so connected to what the baby's feeling that I'm making that selection for the baby. And I am having to tune in deeply, biologically, unconsciously, and maybe consciously to a certain point, but also that it can be problematic if we get too conscious and too intellectual about it, right? Then it's problematic to be too intellectually connected to what's going on and try to analyze everything from an intellectual point of view of what the baby needs. And I shall select this for the baby and that for the baby, when that intellectual capacity for understanding what I need and what the baby needs at any given moment is so tremendously complicated and huge that I don't know for sure that it's possible for the intellect to be up to that task. Because at any given moment, we're at a different time in the 24-hour cycle, which will mean we need different things, different qualities at that time. There's my prakriti, my inherent constitution. There's my vikriti, my current condition. There's the baby's prakriti, its constitution. There's the baby's vikriti, its current condition. There's umpteen infinity different considerations at that moment. Where is the moon in its cycle? Where is the sun in the 24-hour cycle? Which season are we in? What family members are around? What's going on with them? There's so many changeable factors that the intellect is not up to crunching all those factors and being able to spit out a confident understanding of what I should select for myself and what I should select for my baby. Follow? So what are we left with? How do we trust? Right? How do we trust our interaction with this field that we're getting what we need for ourselves and for our babies, for our projects, for um, for our ecosystem, our personal and familial ecosystems? How can we trust that? So, um, this is a powerful question because it applies to any one of us, right? I mean, really, every moment is dying and every moment is being born. The second that a moment is happening, it's dying and a new thing is being born. The Kriyaman karmas, what we're doing right now is planting a seed that is being born for whatever, and will have whatever life and death it will have because of that seed of thought, word, deed that I'm planting right now. And right now, the pralabdha karmas, the karmas from ancient times or recent times that are coming to fruition at this moment, they're ripening. And the second that they ripen, they start to die. The second that an apple ripens is the second it starts to rot. There's a death and a birth happening and a sutika at every given moment. There's a there's a powerful Sutika experience, this liminal experience, when we tune deeply into our experience of reality, that is happening at every moment. Every moment has death, every moment has birth. And so we are living in this liminal moment. And the more we get into that, the more we feel the malleability of the matrix in which impressions are made, and the more we realize we are being formed and reformed tectonically at any moment, and there is no place that is not moving and no time that is not changing in that way. But what is the thing that is not changing? That the saints tell us that our spirits, our souls are drops of the ocean of love, drops of the ocean of consciousness. There's that drop that is that that is my soul, that if I touch that, that is unchanging, that is connected to the divine reality. And there is a knowledge there that is not my knowledge. It is not my intellect. It is not my mental apparatus. It is not even sattva, and it is certainly not rajas and tamas. It's beyond those things. It is unchanging. That is the thing that is unchanging while everything tectonically shifts around it. And that is the thing where there is a knowledge. And when I want to know what to select, if that is becoming a decision based on an intellectual assessment of a situation, that is pissing into the wind. There's too much going on there. It's going to scatter. It's like it's not going to meet the deep requirement of the need. So what is, to me, what are we doing in dinacharya, in our morning routines, the morning being relating to the dawn of life, birth, early childhood, morning, right? And midlife, midday, night, death. These, what are we doing in these early morning times with dinacharya? There's many beautiful things that are happening at that time, but a powerful potential of that dinacharya routine, that early morning routine, is to go in and practice connecting to that innermost essence to the best of my ability every morning, so that I can connect to that, so that when I am moving through my day, faced with what look like choices, I can better understand and cooperate with that moment, that time, to be able to select the highest choice at that moment. So, how do I do that? What if I'm not using, it's very difficult to, it's very not difficult, takes a tremendous amount of attention, I find, to connect with that innermost essence, to see how that innermost essence is going to manifest as an action, a selection. That selection becomes not a selection that is born of a choice, an intellectual choice that I've made, but tuning into the reality of the moment, of the second, of the situation, and cooperating with that reality. So it becomes not a choice, but a cooperation. So to get there, it's hard to stay connected to that innermost essence at every given moment, but to look at what that is not. A choice is not a cooperation with that innermost essence is not a choice based on seduction. Well, I'm feeling, so say like in a postpartum condition, maybe I'm feeling a weakness, and I try to analyze intellectually, okay, what should I do? What kind of nutrition should I give myself to address this weakness? And and I'm and I'm told, oh, you should eat this kind of a diet and not that kind of a diet. And I think, oh, I don't really want to I'll just use this as an example. In Chinese medicine, they're always telling everybody in order to build blood, you have to eat meat. But what if I'm a vegetarian and I'm weak after giving birth, and everybody around me says, oh, you have to eat meat in order to build your strength? But in my innermost essence, I don't want to, but I'm going to make a decision out of fear. I'm afraid that I'm going to get weaker if I don't eat meat, right? Um, that is, if that is not, if that's in alignment with my innermost essence of what of what I know to be the right medicine at the right time, that medicine being either a dietary medicine or an emotional medicine or a spiritual medicine, if that is not in alignment, if that corridor between that possibility and my innermost essence is not clear and welcoming, it's not the right medicine. It's not the right medicine. There has to be another right medicine. So I can't select that medicine out of fear, and I can't pick it out of seduction. Those are two major things that will govern how I select things, is fear and seduction. So, oh, if I eat meat, then I will get strong. It's a seduction. It might be true. I'm not saying everybody needs to be vegetarian. But I'm using this as an example that everybody can relate to and probably has heard about. If it's not the right thing, it's not going to be the right medicine. If it's not the right um, if it's not in alignment with that innermost essence, it's adharmic. It's not my dharma. And so this is why this is why dexterity is, in my opinion, one of the four qualities of effective physicians that everybody agrees on is dexterity. And it's dexterity because if one medicine doesn't feel right, don't force it. Find another medicine. If one environment isn't right, if one situation isn't right, we don't force that. We employ dexterity to be able to find another way to make an action that's in alignment with the innermost essence. Does that make sense? Everyone following? So when we do that, what we're trusting is not that this remedy, that this supplement, that this action, that I can trust that's not, or this doctor, or this doula, or this midwife, or this, the trust is not in those people and those things. It's in the innermost essence that is saying inside, whatever the outcome, this is the right action right now. And then it's not a choice. I'm not choosing something. I'm cooperating. Then the only thing is, do I have the courage to cooperate with what that innermost essence is saying? And that innermost essence is going to say one of three things: yes, no, or it's not going to speak up and it's just going to be quiet. So if I have what looks like a choice in front of me, and it's like, should I take this supplement, for example, then the answer is either yes, and if it's yes, do I have the courage to take that supplement, whether I want to or not? That doesn't matter whether I want to or not. It's, is it right or not in my innermost essence? So that takes courage sometimes, that supplement. I'm saying supplement and we think, oh, how could it take courage to have a supplement? But in another situation, maybe it's to quit a job. Do I quit the job? And the innermost essence says yes, and it's clear. That might take an enormous amount of courage to act in alignment with that. What if and if it says no, don't quit the job? That also may take courage. It's not easy to keep in that job, but the innermost essence is saying that is right. So if I stay with that, it's not a choice. It's a courage to cooperate with that innermost essence, which is reality. And then the other possibility is that the innermost essence is quiet. I look in and say, should I quit the job? And it doesn't say a thing. I don't feel, or I'm not connected enough to hear it. or something. And my guru used to say, when in doubt, do nothing. And he used to say, delay, light will shine. So in those times, I will just stay the course, ideally, until something else becomes like clear that that is the right action. So these kinds of things, it's not trusting the doctor, the supplement, the action. It's trusting the innermost essence to know that that is connected to the baby, to the all the people, to the nature, to everything around, to the environment. It is keyed in. It is part of the creek. It is part of what is irrigating all of us. It is in touch with all those myriad complicating factors and influences, and it knows the right action of that moment. That is the miracle of the innermost essence. That's the miracle of God. That's the miracle of the divinity. That's all of those things being the same. So that is how I look at trust. And if we, I know that part of this session was supposed to be about hormones postpartum. So I will say there's all kinds of hormonal things to know. And please, if you want to know about hormones, um, it's a it's a lot, but it's exciting and interesting. And there's an 11-hour course, Women's Health and Hormones, on my website. Please take it. And if you need help affording it, reach out and we'll help you afford it. That will give an understanding of hormones that I can't give in an hour. But in terms of just basics, if we are, if we are in the middle of this tectonic shift postpartum, if we can move with that and adjust to that, that will decrease the potential for stagnation, which increases pain of one kind or another. If we can have uh, the right irrigation around us to the best of our ability, um, the safety, the kindness, the love, the someone cooking for us, someone protecting our space so that we can rearrange, so that our beings that are tectonically rearranging can do that without too much interference. That incredibly helps to reduce the stress. And it, if there's stress, cortisol levels are high. When that happens too long, cortisol levels can bottom out. Either way, that's hormone imbalance. When there's stress, it's impossible to have hormonal balance. So protecting that space so that the organism can shift, the baby's organism and the mother's organism. And it's almost hard to say that the two are separate at that early postpartum time. They're so connected. So if I can let my being shift, that allows baby to feel more safe as its tectonic plates are moving. So that protective bubble allows us to get out of the way of, keep the intellect off board, as allow things to shift and allow us to continue to dip into that innermost essence, to sip from those waters, to um, to quench our thirst from those waters, and trust that what comes of that, if we're cooperating with that, will create a good environment for transformation, the third law of nutrition, to happen. In that idealized experience, Agni can thrive. Agni is protected, that digestive fire, that digestive ability, in part because we will be making the right choices of diet, because we'll be tuning into the innermost essence. It will know that we don't need complicated food, that we do need this, we don't need that. It will know that. So it's behooves, I think, all of us to have that dinacharya practice of tuning into the innermost essence, to be able to align with that cosmic consciousness, that universal consciousness that is wicked smart, as they would say in Boston. So let me leave a few moments for questions here. I see we're almost at the end of at our time, and I've blabbed continuously. So, uh, Christine, is there anything that you'd like me to go into more, or does anybody have questions?
Julia,
Julia,
go ahead.
Hey, Claudia. I have a
hi,
question.
nice to see you, Julia. Been a long.
Lovely to see you. Thank you for being here. So, one of the things that I sometimes wonder about, especially about this group, as I try to teach Ayurveda in a very short, small way, is, you know, we teach a routine that we do during postpartum, and so what I have noticed is sometimes that trust that you were talking about gets replaced with, did I get all the things in? Like, am I going to, like, okay, is everything perfect? And then women start to worry rather than trust that things are okay. But start worrying like, oh no, I didn't get my postpartum window right. Oh no, I didn't get all the things in. Oh God, I didn't prepare, blah, blah, blah. What am I going to do? So I usually feel like intentions are a lot more powerful than the things we do, but I don't know. And that's what I usually teach in this school. But also, it's nice to have a confirmation.
Yeah, and I think you just nailed it. But anybody have any thoughts on that, or instant knowing about what Julia just shared? Does anybody else feel like, uh-huh, sometimes things have to go out the window because they're not the right thing at that moment? Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's my feeling. Because if we're listening to the innermost essence, doing the same, doing the, I'll tell you what is non-negotiable for me is trying to connect with my innermost essence. Everything else is negotiable and may be right one morning or not another, but that one isn't. Emma, go ahead.
Hi, Claudia.
Ye-
Thank you so much for everything. I just wanted to respond to that because I just wanted to reflect about that because I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner and also been on the receiving end of a lot of therapies and practitioners as well. And I've just had the experience that I worked with someone recently who was very strict about, for me, about getting medicines in at a very specific time, around dinacharya, about everything being at a very specific and very rigid. And just for me and my own personality, this created a tremendous amount of tension, of stress, and kind of worked contradictory to, I think, a lot of the goals that were part of the treatment protocol. And I realized that as I was working with this person, I started practicing the same way because I was like, oh, this must work. Like, this is probably a good idea. And I started kind of sharing things in that line with others. And I found that, again, that there wasn't a lot of receptivity to it. And I think part of it kind of feels like maybe our day and age, like there's just so much, people have so much shame around, like if they don't do something the right way, then they feel guilty about it. And then guilt isn't really good in the healing process. And anyway, I just kind of wanted to share that because I know that there's a time and a place for a certain amount of strictness, but that my experience with it has been counterproductive in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Thank you, Emma. Yeah, I mean, I think it's again this inner looking, like If I don't want to do something, is it because of tamas speaking, this tendency towards inertia? But if I go underneath that into the innermost essence, then I know the answer. I don't know unless I go there, you know. Am I not doing this thing because I'm lazy, or am I not doing this thing because it's not the right thing to do right now? I'm, and it's not always, well, if I'm tired, it's not the right thing to do. Sometimes if I'm tired, it's still the right thing to make myself go, even push myself beyond my resources. Sometimes that's what my innermost essence is like. There's this, like, and I get the overall experience with that is compassion for myself. Like, this is gonna hurt me a little bit in one way or another to do this, but it is the right thing. This is the place where I need to push. And other times it's like, no, do not, this is not the right time to push. So it's that, it really, that is the job, is to merge with that innermost essence. And that's enlightenment, that, and my guru used to say, it's the birthright of each of us to achieve that enlightenment, to get that enlightenment. And it is not easy, not easy. And I will say one final thing. I know we have less than a minute here, but sometimes the karmas don't allow me to see clearly and don't allow me to touch that innermost essence at a certain given time. So something will happen and I will be misaligned because I couldn't hear the innermost essence. And to me, that feels like an expression of some kind of karmic thing that I have to go through because I wasn't allowed to see. I couldn't see my way to that clarity. So I think, having compassion for ourselves in the arc of reality here and what we don't understand, and, trying to connect as much as possible with that thing that's beyond our comprehension but doesn't change. And uh, that's the job. So I know we're out of time here, but thank you everybody for your kind attention. And Raquel, I sure loved seeing your little one in the screen. That makes me so happy. So thank you so much, everybody. And thank you, Christine, for inviting me here. And nice to see you and Julia and Emma, and recognize some of the other names of people. And I wish you all smooth tectonic shifts as is possible. May we all be held, and all of our space be protected by the magnificent divine that connects us all together.
Claudia, thank you so much. This has been so healing to listen to and affirming to be in this space, sharing these thoughts and feelings that truly bring us back to ourselves. So I honor each and every one of you for your journeys. You will all have all the information you need post this talk. So rest assured, you'll have all of Claudia's information to continue to learn from her and be connected with her. My heart is full. I hope that each of yours is too. And thank you.
Shanti, Shanti.
The Sacred Window podcast is brought to you by the Center for Sacred Window Studies. You can visit us to find out more about our online training and mentoring programs, plus resources and products for and about the sacred postpartum window at www.sacredwindowstudies.com. And our music is written and performed by Sarah Emmett. You can hear more of Sarah's music by visiting www.sarahemmett.bandcamp.com.